Thank you all for coming here this evening. We appreciate it. We'll get started by letting Commissioner Boatwright lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everybody please stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that was kind of nice to hear so many voices do the pledge at the same time. All right. First of all, it's really great to see everybody. So thank you for taking time out of your evening to come and speak with us this evening. There's going to be two opportunities to make a comment. The first opportunity is what we call public comment, if you're not familiar. And if you're here to speak specifically about general RV, I would recommend that you hold your comments until we open up the public hearing portion of the meeting. If you'd like to make other comments that are not related to general RV, the public comment is open for you guys to come and say whatever it is that you'd like to say. So at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. And then if you have a comment that you want to state during this period, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please be sure to state your name and your address. And then please direct your comments to the entire commission, and then we will not respond to you during that time. So if there are any public comments that would like to come forward, now's your time.
You mean you're all here for one thing?
All right, we'll move on then. All right, item number 3, public hearing and action on preliminary and final conditional use and agreements for our RV general parcels, number 1301-80090 and 1302-30214, located at the corner of 475 East and 6550 South by applicant Kevin. If I murder this name, I apologize. Shomchek. Great, thank you. Of the Mac Ogden Group LLC. Before we get started, I've asked Trevor to first go over his comments and his review, and then we'll go to the next step. Go ahead, Trevor.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Okay, so tonight we are considering the preliminary plan and subdivision plat and a final subdivision plat recommendation to the City Council, along with the conditional use permit, the maintenance agreement, and what goes along with the preliminary plan, which is the landscape plan, site plan, architectural review, and improvement plans. So with this being a conditional use on the property, what that means is that it's an allowed use that we can place conditions on if there are detrimental impacts to the community. With conditional uses, those impacts need to be quantifiable. They can't be arbitrary and capricious. They need to be designated, and they need to be within our code to allow us to put those stipulations on those items. So for example, if there's concerns about lighting or traffic patterns, then we just need to have a quantifiable mitigation effort to limit the detrimental effects that those may have. And we can talk about those more as we get into those items. I know that's a very broad 30,000-foot view of conditional use. That's what it is going for. This project is approximately 16.43 acres. That is smaller than the total site acreage. The reason why that is smaller is that there are wetlands that are delineated on the property, and those are patrolled by the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers cannot assess the actual impact of those wetlands until it becomes wet season. So we have to wait till the spring to look at the impacts and whether or not there's any mitigation that needs to happen on that portion. And so because of that, the developer has chosen to subdivide the property, excluding that wetland portion until they can clear up that information with the Army Corps of Engineers. Once they have that information and that's been established, then they would go through the process to amend the plat, incorporating that remnant parcel that is currently delineated on the plat. The zoning for the project is commercial highway. That commercial highway does allow for the sale of recreational vehicles as a conditional use, as I said before, and that's why we're here looking at the conditional use portions of that project as well. As far as what's contained on the plat, everything has been supplied that is necessary, and there are no outstanding items that need to be corrected within that. The site plan has been provided. It has the lighting plan with that as well, showing you where the street lighting will be located on the property, and we can review that when we get there. Landscape plan has been provided. It is in black and white, so it's hard to see that as the landscape plan. It's not required for it to be color. Obviously, it's prettier to look at, but it is a complete landscape plan. One consideration is that the developer is requesting a reduction to 10% landscaping by placing a large amount of trees along the roadway and increasing their sidewalk size to 10 feet to accommodate pedestrian and trail travel, as that parcel has trail connections dictated on the general plan. Right now, the general plan dictates that trail fall behind the property, and with that use, we felt that was a little bit dangerous to kind of seclude that trail behind a business, and so we worked with the developer to potentially bring that trail to the front, having that option. That is because that is a concession on the 10% or on the 15% landscaping. That's at the discretion of the Planning Commission to deliberate the request there. Just reminder, the code only says exceptional design. So that is a very broad, and I understand that's very broad on what that means. There is an architectural review. They submitted the renderings for the development, and so we can review those and look at what materials are being used and the look and feel of that building, and discuss that with the developer on what we feel exemplifies the character of South Weaver City. The improvement plans have been supplied by the developer. Our city engineer has reviewed those and signed those off as acceptable and as a good solution to the area. One thing that's unique about this project is that we're including a maintenance agreement. What this maintenance agreement is simply a document that says what lies on your property and is yours, you will maintain, and what lies on city property and is the city's, we will maintain. In short and simple. One of the main drivers of this maintenance agreement is the inclusion of underground stormwater retention. Because those are located on the property, they'll be underneath the asphalt and the parking areas that the developer would just be responsible to maintain and make sure that those are clear from debris to maintain a good stormwater collection and retention on the property. Other items are the landscaping, just ensuring that the landscaping along the old Fort Road is maintained and looks nice, as well as the vegetation that's growing between their property, from their property line and the freeway, just to make sure that does not become overgrown. One other request from the developer is the exclusion of a fire fence along the property. Our code dictates that if your property lies on the interstate corridor, that you're required to have a masonry fence up to 6 feet. However, that can be waived or reduced by the Planning Commission, so that is your call as a planning commission to waive or reduce that requirement. They're asking to reduce that. We reviewed with our fire chief to see what the impacts would be on the fire concerns and any auto vehicle impacts to that property. And he feels that because that property will be isolated from residential areas, it'll have yards of asphalt between it and any other residential uses, that the only danger that it proposes is onto that property itself and not to the rest of the community, and therefore would already provide that fire break and provide protection from the vehicular traffic on the road. With that, I think that about covers everything on our review. The developer is here tonight, and so after the public hearing, if there are any questions that you would like to ask the developer, he is available for you if you so wish.
Thank you. Just as a general comment to help keep things organized, if you are here to make a comment during the public hearing portion of this next section, and someone else has already mentioned what you are concerned about, don't feel like you need to repeat those comments over and over again. That's just something that we can use to save time. Or if there's a group of you that have very similar concerns, if you want to send one person forward to represent your group, that would be another way to help limit the amount of time that we're all here together. But again, you don't have to do that. That's just an opportunity for you guys to consolidate your comments.
Please suggest that everybody sign in. A lot of newcomers don't know about that.
Yeah. If anyone hasn't had an opportunity to sign in, if you could do that before you leave, that would be great. So I'll look for a motion to officially open up the public hearing.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to open up the public hearing and action on preliminary final conditional use and agreement for RV general parcels numbers 130180090 and 130230214, located at the corner of 475 East and 6650 South by applicant Kevin Schomchak of the Mac Ogden Group LLC.
I'll second. All right. And Commissioner Boatwright beat you to it there. All in favor?
Aye.
Taylor, if you can unmute yourself, just to make sure it's official.
Aye.
Great. And I'm an aye as well. All right, the time is now yours. Feel free to come forward. Thank you.
And we're
I need to
recording
use
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do.
Sorry, we all want to hear what you have to say.
I'm Rolane Collins, and I live at 552 East Spalding Way and I'm one of two designated representatives for many of this group that's here tonight in the Riverside Place adult community, which is very impacted by this development. I realize that this is an important meeting because it will change the face of South Weber. It is a significant commercial development adjacent to the newest residential construction in South Weber, which is us. And of course, our initial reaction was dismay, because change is hard and the ruralness will disappear. But we respect the city's master plan and planning commission expertise, the rights of the seller, and the thorough and professional work that has gone into the conception and engineering of what is now proposed by General RV. As neighbors, we've discussed and considered the impacts of this type of business on our own homes and surrounding residential community. We have discussed the pros and cons of this business and contrasted it with other possible businesses that we would find less desirable. We've tried to envision how, other than significant tax revenue, this type of business directly benefits us and feels in harmony with the larger identity of South Weber. So my purpose in speaking tonight is to share three concerns and requests that have filtered to the top of our discussion after reviewing the planning packet from the city website. We feel our requests are actionable and reasonable good neighbor policies. First, we respectfully ask that additional consideration is given to the buffer between the business dealership and our homes. Could you have a wider park strip with some benches that will create a park-like feel as a buffer between the businesses and homes? Could the historical marker be moved to Old Fort Road? There's good landscape plans with trees and bushes, and we appreciate that. What size of trees will be planted? Will they take years to help create that buffer? Will they be so small that there won't be benefits for a long time? But most importantly, rather than the chain link fence, we would like a masonry wall along Old Fort Road, or a portion of it, how, that could be determined, that complements the existing walls around the power substation and the new residential homes. This would look better, it would improve privacy and dampen lighting and noise concerns while having little or no impact on prospective retail clients. Second, light pollution concerns us. Elsewhere along the Wasatch Front, we see dealerships with baseball park illumination at night. I'm not an expert on lighting, none of us are in our group, but I know that lumens, lighting color, and brightness, the way floodlights are angled, having shielded canopies on tall light poles that direct the light downward, and controlling the hours of illumination impact the effect of commercial business lighting. Can you assure us that the lighting plans and designs for this development incorporate measures to minimize light pollution and sky glow to our neighborhood and surrounding areas? And third, we have concerns about access in and out of the dealership. We suggest a right turn only sign be placed on the exit only gate on Old Fort Road. At some point, also, it's possible that on-street parking might become an issue on that road. And we ask for assurances that the owner and the city will take prompt action with further directional signage or remedies if business traffic invades our quiet neighborhood. In conclusion, we believe that if circumstances were reversed, those who make decisions for General RV would have the same feelings as we do. We want to create and maintain positive feelings about neighboring businesses and believe General RV feels the same way about us as neighbors. We feel addressing our concerns would go a long way in creating the goodwill which should exist.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to thank Rolene for giving you a background of how we got here, or how I got here, and the support that we have from our 55 plus community. My name is Janet Gibbs. I live at 586 East Green Springs Way. First of all, I want to thank the Planning Commission for the opportunity to address our concerns and acknowledge the developer's willingness to listen to homeowners' concerns. My comments and questions that I will share with you represent the homeowners that we have met with and who have contributed to the request for feedback. So first of all, although home values may not diminish immediately, there is a possibility of future impact on home values. This is a 55 and older community who, I am sure when I say this, this is our last home, and it will be sold as inheritance and things like that. So that is a concern. Are there any plans for long-term RV storage, either privately or business? In other words, if person brings in an RV that needs to be repaired and he or she needs to leave the state, the country, can they store their RV there while it's repaired and until they come and get it? Is there a time limit on how long an RV can be in this location? All parking, I'm going to assume, will be contained and confined to the business. There will be no street parking. We need to keep that street safe. And, you know, Utah's one of the states that we have the worst drivers in the state. Let's not encourage them any more than we have to. So we would assume that there will be no street parking, because it looks to me like they have quite a bit of parking. I know a lot of it's for new RVs, but another thing, water usage. I know we think we are out of a drought. We are not. And it was a pretty tough summer on plants and lawns and things like that. We all lost a lot. So when you have a car lot or maybe an RV lot, all car lots that I am aware of clean, wash down their cars that have been sitting out in the storms or wind and whatever, what you want to say makes them dirty. They wash them, I suspect, once a week. So do they wash the RVs? Is there a washing bay when RVs are repaired? Are they clean? So that's to me, that's quite a bit of water usage, and much more than a home would incur. The last thing is, or not the last thing, the other thing is signage. What are the plans to advertise a business besides in the newspaper and TV and all those kinds of things? What size are signs going to be? Is there a limit on size? Is there a limit on lights, LED or whatever? Is there a certain number of signs that they can put wherever? I am pretty sure I-84 will not let them put a big sign out there, a billboard or anything like that. So where are the signs going to go? Are they coming in to where we live, or where will they be? Because it is a business and they do need to be able to advertise and let people know what they do and where they can go. So if there's some specifics that are in the plan, which I don't know if there are, but if we could have some specifics on where they will be, not blocking traffic and other things on the roads. Delivery questions. Since there's one entrance and one exit, and I have to admit, I'm not an expert on delivering RVs. So I'm assuming that they come on big trucks, or maybe they drive them to the destination. I don't know. But if they come on trucks, when do they come? During business hours? Is it 2 in the morning? When is it? What's their plan for them to park? Because if you've been on Riverdale or anywhere like that, you know car haulers are parked in the medium, and then they unload everything. So, and if trucks drive through the neighborhood, if they're like me, they get lost at least once. And in our neighborhood, we have a lot of the other people who live on Peterson. They ride through our street. They walk their dogs through our street. They run, they bicycle, they're always in the middle of the road. So it's going to be a little startling if a big truck comes around that one corner onto my street and there's a bunch of dogs, hopefully on leash, and people walking. So that to me is a concern, because it's right in front of my house and I don't see any dead bodies. Another thing is just to piggyback on what Rolane said with the landscaping. I know they said trees, but it would be nice to consider native plants. If you flipped your strip this year, you know, to get a rebate, you had to have native plants, all native plants. And I think, and you can get native trees too. So that would be really nice to help our state remain continue to have the native trees and plants. Another thing, and I don't know, I'm aware, think that there is a business in Draper, smaller than what is planned here. Is this business a replacement for that business, or is it an extension of their business already? It might set a precedent for other business to come in and say, we are closing one business, but we want to bring ours to South Weaver or wherever. This is my last one, is the good neighbor, and it just piggybacks on what Rolane says. As a major business in South Weaver, which may provide South Weaver with a really solid tax base, and I know we need it, nobody's going to dispute that. But there are other ways to be a good neighbor. There are ways to get involved in sponsoring Little League. I know there's a stage at one of the parks that people would like to, if not already done, but redone, because it's used quite a bit. Helping with the parks, maintaining community, or any other community efforts to maintain or improve South Weaver as a family community. And I think that would be a plus for everybody. It would be a plus for the RV business, and it definitely would be a plus for South Weaver. And I think it would set a nice precedent. Let's be the first to require that. So once again, thank you. And I want to thank our crew back there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Lynn Paul, 826 East South Weaver Drive. And I don't live down there, but I am grateful to see something coming in there. Years ago, Cabela's tried to come in here. I don't know how many remember that. And people come up in arms and it was turned down. And I wish the heck it was back there. Not only it saves me a trip, but it brought in a lot of revenue. But this is going to be good. You know, the only people that putting money, much tax money into our community are the gravel pits. And I can tell you we have them because every day I go outside, I have a terrace on the back of my house we built 15 years ago. In the last 2 years, I've used it one day because the dirt and everything comes in there. The RV trailer sales place cannot be that bad. So I think there's been some legitimate concerns here, like a berm wall or put the wall on so they can't see over in there particularly. But I would hope as the RV place looks at the ground that's not have to be in the wet areas, keep as many trees over next to the freeway as you can, because they are really great to cut noise. For those of you who've lived along that area, after the fire comes through and we lost the trees, the noise is 10 times worse than it was before we had the fire. So I think this is a good thing for the community. There are some things to look at these people have addressed, and I sympathize with them and want to see their concerns addressed. But I do think it's a good thing for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need my name first too?
Name, address.
R. Jeffrey Hicks. I live at 6680 South, 475 East. First of all, I just want to remind you all that this is a neighborhood. I know they've been, been building houses there, and people have been there since the 70s. I've only been there 30 some odd years, but it is a neighborhood. So I really like the idea of some of the conditional things. It's way better than some of the things I've seen over the years. As Mr. Paul said, I mean, there's been other things like a truck stop or something like that. Terrible. This is a neighborhood. The idea that we'd want to have something big that's running all night long with big, huge lights, just terrible. We live here. We live right across the street from it. So I love the ideas of conditional use. Push it back, give a buffer. The trees, bigger trees, not just plant little saplings and a couple bushes. Bigger trees, block some of that stuff out, make it feel like a neighborhood. If they can push them back towards the ditch, all the better. I know this says it's somewhat wetlands back there, but it used to be really wetlands before a few years ago when they cut down all the trees, plowed it under and planted alfalfa and pretended it wasn't wetlands. So whatever. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. Love the idea of making it one way out, no idling. Keep this in mind. We've got to keep in mind that it's a neighborhood. I just want to keep saying that. So the idea that they brought up about deliveries and trucks. If you go to some of these big places, they got semis parking all night long, waiting for them to open to deliver a load of vehicles or trailers or whatever. And if they're going to sit on our street and sit there and idle all night long, I mean, they can't. We just don't want that in our neighborhood. Maybe they have a special spot that is not in, not chain linked off or something on the other side towards the freeway where those trucks can park. Like out at Autoleaf, they got a spot on that north end for these trucks to park and idle all night while they wait to deliver. Something like that. All in all, it's way better than some of the bad stuff. But chain link fence across the front, like who of us wants to look out their door through a chain link fence at a sea of campers? None of us. So I would suggest as a condition, as they may have mentioned before, bigger, taller fence, no CM fence. Other than that, hey, they've been wanting to do something with that plot for a long time, and do it and just try to be aware that we're regular people and we live there. It is a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremiah Corney. I live at 6734 South Harvest Park. And like our Jeff said, it is a neighborhood and we want to keep it that way. When I lived in Florida some years back, I actually lived next to a car dealership and they had what they called dark hours that were required in the community because they did live next to a neighborhood, or the neighborhood was right next to a dealership. When business hours were over, like 9 o'clock, lights had to go out. They had some street lights in there for security, no different than what you'd see on a regular street light. But I would request something like a dark hours requirement on the dealership so that we can maintain the feel of the neighborhood. That's about all I have, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I couldn't miss this. Paul Sturm, South Weaver City. Item 1, I am impressed with the thoroughness of General RD's information generated for the city regarding prescribed information required for this development. This is not typical for the normal developer's presentation to the city to be so complete. 2, the conditional use permit should include aspects of the dark sky program that has been integrated into prior South Weaver City developments. Lighting for such a large area needs to be carefully considered because of the development being adjacent to residential areas. Hours for lighting should be from dusk to closing. After that, only for security purposes. An example of this type of restriction was imposed on the car wash on 2700 East on the frontage road. My last is a question. Who will be involved in the development of the conditional use requirements? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Scott Phillips, 497 Peterson Parkway, South Weaver. Just a couple comments. Most of our concerns have kind of already been addressed, I think. But the big one that comes to my mind is lighting. Obviously, first and foremost, I like the idea of dark hours. I live very close. I don't want to look out my window to a lit up Christmas tree every single night. We like the ruralness, obviously, of South Weaver. That's why we built here. The second one that keeps coming to my mind is this is going to be the closest business to where my kids ride their skateboards and ride their bikes. And I think it would be a good idea to make sure we have nice, big, safe sidewalks and potentially have a place for them to go buy sodas and drinks and treats. I can just envision a lot of neighborhood kids gravitating to that area, and there should be probably a safe way for them to get in and out and not, scratch up the nice, expensive RVs. But I envision the kids using the business as well, actually. Lastly, one of my concerns is constantly going over the freeway overpass to get into our trail system. And I know long-term, we've talked about having some type of connection from our neighborhood over there. If that was integrated into this development, that would make a lot of sense. Because again, I'm just seeing a lot of bikes. So just remember, I mean, they're coming into our neighborhood where we have kids, we have bikes. And so those are obviously our concerns. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ricky Benitez, 6737 South Harvest Park Lane. A lot of these individuals, our neighbors, have brought up really great points. I think one of them that they may not have hit at is the intersection on Old Maple and I want to say 475 East, that intersection with a lot of traffic. I mean, I get hit almost twice a day there on that intersection on my way to work and on my way back home. I think people still don't understand that we live on that side of town. You know, there's houses there now. And so having an influx of traffic of RVs and trailers driving by there, it's just a call for action, right? There either needs to be a light there needs to be a roundabout. I think a roundabout would be a really good idea in my opinion. But I think that would be a really big major issue alongside with a lot of trailers in and out. You know, I walk my dogs with my partner all the time. We ride our bikes. We see a lot of these individuals in our community. And so that is all I have to say. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Montinga. I live on 6721 South Harvest Park Lane. We've been living here for about a year and a half, and we have loved the, I think as when I interviewed for one of the spots on the planning commission, the small town feel that was described to me at all times. One of the first things I wanted to bring up was a concern for those people that don't have the chance of being here simply because their houses are currently being built by Visionary. They haven't moved in, they haven't had a chance to even be involved in the neighborhood, and they have no idea that this is going on, even though they might have signed on buying their house. The windows in the back of their house will look directly at the lot. Another concern I had is that concern of test drives. When someone goes in, someone unexperienced may never have had an RV, they buy this RV, and when they turn out of that exit, they're going to go left potentially to our Harvest Park Lane and that new subdivision, and they're going to drive an unexperienced driver through the streets and where all the kids are playing and where all the people are walking their dogs. By the dog park, a dog might run out and jump in front of it if they're not careful. That is a concern simply because there's no control there, and so my question there would be a restriction on possibly where these test drives would happen. Take them out on the freeway, take them out, do a loop somewhere else, but try to avoid the neighborhoods and those places where we live. I wrote down a lot of things, but there's been a lot of comments, and that's about all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Michael Poff, 154 East Harper Drive. Couple of things. I wasn't here for the presentation, so I apologize. Just a couple of concerns or suggestions. I used to live across from that for over 20 years. I had a chance to think a lot about that. Some kind of a landscaped berm along the South Bench Drive. I don't know what they call it now. But anyways, I think a 4-foot one with, you know, some vegetation on it would block a lot of the headlights that would point into neighborhoods. I think obviously the 6-foot sidewalk with the 6-foot park strip, a lot of times on those busy roads, we just put a 6-foot sidewalk and not allow for the park strip. I don't know if you guys noticed on the other side of the street there, they put that zero-scaping in, and I know it's trendy and popular and people like rocks, but you see what happens. They get pushed in the street and things like that. So anyways, remind you guys that there is a visual buffer on our general plan to preserve as much of that, the trees and the vegetation. I know a lot of times those businesses think, oh, we want exposure, but we have that in the general plan for a reason. We had it there for a long time for a reason. I think does add a nice feel. Whatever they do, incorporate the trail system. I don't think it needs to go behind the building or the business. I think along the front road until we get to the substation. But anyways, that kind of snuck up on us. Wasn't expecting a special meeting for something like this, and so we didn't have a chance to really rally support, but we did get a lot of people out here today. So thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Going once. Going twice. All right, I'll look for a motion to close public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second. I'll give it to Taylor.
Thanks. All right, quick roll call, starting with Commissioner Walton.
Aye.
Commissioner Boatright.
Aye.
Commissioner Losey.
Aye.
And
McFadden.
why do I always do that? Sorry, Commissioner McFadden.
Aye.
Thank you. I know, it's horrible. You can beat me later. I apologize.
It's only been a year.
I know, it's really bad. And I'm I as well. All right. One, thank you for all the comments. Definitely appreciate you guys thought of things that I thought of everything, but you guys brought up some other points that I didn't think of. So thank you for bringing those up for us to consider. But I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners to get our discussion going now. I'll start with Commissioner Boatright.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Do we want to give the developer a
Yeah,
chance?
that's what I was thinking.
I would like to hear his
Sure.
response if he's willing, just
Sure.
because it might help keep the discussion.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, if the developer would like to come up and either address what's been said and as well as maybe stay up here so we can ask
Yeah.
some questions.
Absolutely, as long as you need me.
Great.
No. There are limits.
We're
Everybody
gonna
wants to
try
go.
not to have the meeting go,
4
like
hours.
some of our previous meetings have gone.
Oh,
It's been a while though, guys, so I don't know. We've got a 4-hour meeting in front of us.
we'll try to keep it short.
kidding.
My name is Kevin Shonchuk. Good job on the pronunciation, to all those who try. I'm actually with South Weaver LLC. Mac Ogden is the current owner of the property. So on the application, you've got the current owner and the applicant. We're the applicant and will be the new owner. General RV is the user. So South Weaver LLC and General are will basically be the same ownership group. It's just the I don't need to bore you with the details. Anyway, a couple other points of clarification. The irrigation canal that runs through the property is our concern. It's the Army Corps of Engineers actually considers that a riverine because it's fed by the South Weaver or by the Weaver River, and then it goes back into the Weaver River. So it's kind of like an offshoot of the river. So that's the main reason that we're kind of phasing this plan, because we will need some buy-in and permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. So, and that's going to take time, and those things can only be done at certain times. So the water's got to be shut off, things like that. So we'll be piping. We're going to be looking to pipe and relocate to make it better than what it is today, right? Instead of having an open area, it would be restricted to any kind of pollution or whatever might happen from a fire or something. Not us, obviously, but a bad situation elsewhere. But let's see. I think that's all I had as far as clarification. But there were a lot of good points and a lot of good questions on, and I wrote, I think, most of them down. Seemed like lighting was the biggest issue. I don't know if you have the photometric that you can bring up, Trevor, but the photometric study that we have done, we've got a company that does these for all of our projects around the country. They do a really good job of keeping the light on our property. This light is mainly for security. I heard a few people talk about security. That's really what it's for. We're not showing RVs at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. This is 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning to 6 or 7 or 8, depending on the day kind of business. So we're not running 24/7. We're not running on Sundays. We do. I think we are open on Saturdays, but I think it's a Monday through Saturday kind of thing. And I can get the hours to everybody here if you need that kind of information. But certainly our intent is not to cast light off the property. It's basically to keep people, I shouldn't say people honest, but somehow, some way, things walk off the property from time to time. So it does happen. So I'm not saying it would happen in South Weaver. I'm just saying it does. So that's generally what it's for. Obviously to get people to their cars too at the end of the night. So after work. Let's see. Access, right only out of the exit only. You know, I don't know how much we're going to be using that exit only, to be honest with you, but that's something that we can consider. The only issue I have with altering that is that we did have a traffic study done by a big company that does this. They did have some pointers for us, and we made changes to our drawings to satisfy that those issues. Like I think one thing was moving our RVs a little bit farther back off the road, so you can, so if you're turning left out of the westerly entrance and exit, you have more sight vision for oncoming traffic, so you don't have an issue with turning left or even turning right. So we have made some pretty big, in our opinion, big concessions on that, because that's trailer parking or RV parking. That we, you know, the more RVs we have, the better the store will perform, basically. It's the long and short of it. So one of the, I'm sorry?
She's getting the lighting plan.
Oh, okay.
Her computer is very slow, so she's
No, we got time. Yeah, it's okay. So one of the other questions was, do we store RVs? We don't do any third-party storage at all. Nothing like that. So nobody's going to be coming in after hours, dropping stuff off, or coming in to take their stuff. So like I said, we'll have a determined a set store hours, and that's it. So, and definitely no RV storage. Like I said, we need as much space as we can have to sell these RVs. We're typically at 30 to 40 acres. This is a very small site for us, so we need as much as we can get on it. Let's see, street parking. We will not have any street parking. Signage, it will be as allowable by code. We typically do a building mounted sign and then a ground mounted sign, a monument sign at the entrance. People know where to turn in, and then you'll obviously have directional signage on the property. Sometimes we do a pylon sign by the freeway, but I have not seen any plans for that yet, and it's not on our site plan, but we could, those are always up for discussion. So just so you all know that. Let's see. Delivery of RVs, that's all done during business hours. Somebody's got to be there to check them in and get them logged. So we're not going to have people running through all hours of the night. Draper is not closing. The Draper store is not closing. Sponsorship in the community. We try to be very good stewards of the property and partners with the community. So yeah, that's definitely something that we do with every community. And if anyone wanted to check in on how we do those types of things, you could call the city manager of Draper and do some homework on us. I think they like having us there, and I hope you guys will too. Let's see. Something about the masonry wall along the Old Fort Road. We can't do that for a few reasons, but we do have some extra topsoil if anyone wants any, needs any. But we can try. We've been thinking about this a little bit. If we can lose a little bit along the Old Fort Road there in the buffer area and landscape area, kind of berm it up a little bit. I was just talking to our engineer. Because of how much room there is, there's probably only enough area for a foot, maybe a little bit more. Maybe we can squeeze a little bit more, but anything you can do to help obviously helps with what we're talking about here. So if we can raise that grade up a little bit along the perimeter, we will do that. So we're already considering that.
What are the reasons for not doing a masonry wall?
So the masonry wall, number one, is restricted for security. We can't see people coming. We don't see what's happening. We need, the main reason that we want it
the masonry wall gone from, the freeway side as well. So security is a real issue. Okay, I can't stress that enough. But like I said, South Weaver sounds like, or seems like a really great place. Sure, everything's gonna be fine, but I don't want to go through numbers, but we have a situation where we just opened a new store in a Greyhound and we lost $40,000 worth of product overnight. So it can be, you never know what'll happen. So we have security measures, we have cameras, we have motion. We can't see unless we can see, right? So that's the main reason. But also a masonry wall is very expensive. That's another reason. It's definitely a consideration.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Draper has a wall. Yeah, they do.
They,
Between their house, between the dealership.
they do have one wall, correct?
And
I don't know if that was the existing wall, because that was not a ground up facility. That was not built for general RV. I don't know if that was already existing. I didn't have anything to do with the construction there.
you had a statement on the berm. I definitely like berms myself as well.
Okay.
But you said you were restricted. Is that just because there's not enough space to build the grade?
That's right.
Is that right? Okay. That's what I was thinking.
So your business is sales and service, correct?
That's right.
You kind of downplay the service. Wouldn't be much of that.
Point of order.
There is. There's
Go ahead.
definitely a lot of service. Yeah, there's,
I'm just gonna say point of order. For those that are in the audience, if you guys can just keep any response to what the developer or the presenter at the pulpit, he has the floor. It's his chance to talk to us. If there's, I guess, additional comments, we can reopen back up public hearing or no? Because we closed it.
No, we closed.
No, we can't, but just, we're gonna try to maintain order. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Man, I'm horrible with names.
Kevin,
Kevin,
no,
thank
that's
you.
okay.
Jeez.
we're gonna require name tag.
Good. Okay, I know.
You have to read.
Little stickies. All right. Thank you for responding to a lot of the concerns.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Boatright, I'll turn it over to you.
All right.
And I was gonna say, do we want to have him just go ahead and take a seat while we kind of have our discussion? And then if we have any questions, we can bring it back up, just so he's not standing there.
I don't know, if you're okay standing, I'd prefer you stay there because I think there's
I
gonna be
can
a lot
hang
of
out for a minute.
questions. Yeah, okay. We'll go there and then we'll see how it goes. Go ahead.
So I do have well, first, let me say, I like this. Out of anything that could go on that property, I think this is probably the best option that we have had and probably ever will have. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have concerns about it, but it's better than storage units. It's better than a truck stop. It's better than a Motel 6. And back in the day, I used to work for an RV place, and they're not busy like a Walmart or a Cabela's. I mean, there's a consistent and customer base there, but we're certainly not going to see like huge crowds during Christmas time or on Black Friday. Most people aren't buying a trailer on Black Friday.
Right.
But so I do like this. I really do. I'm familiar with the Jensen family, Robert Jensen. They're great people. They will be a part of the community, based on my experience with them. Some of the concerns I have, well, most of the concerns I have been expressed already, but I think top of my list is lighting. I used to live in Riverdale, close to Larry H. Miller, and that neighborhood right below Larry H. Miller became daylight year-round, or all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If there's a way that we can mitigate that and limit that,
I would like to see that. The entrance and exit, I'm not a traffic engineer, so forgive my ignorance here, but I'm not a fan of how they line up with existing roads. Again, based on my experience in Riverdale, seeing people just go straight across and into neighborhoods, especially the exit, you know, if people are going to be leaving and going straight across, not just the fact that they're going into neighborhoods, but it's dangerous. I don't know how many wrecks I've seen over where people are going from Target to, I think, River Drive in Riverdale, just going straight across. So that's a concern that I have. But again, I acknowledge I am not a traffic engineer or an engineer in any sense. The historic marker, I hope you save it and put it somewhere in an appropriate place. I am a historian, so I care about that. What else? The landscaping, I know our code requires irrigation systems and all that. I hope we go to more drought tolerant things that will be more acceptable to that. But at the same time, I do like the ideas of trees and that as a buffer, but I also know that trees, larger trees, are more expensive as well. I think that's really all the concerns that I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. Commissioner Walton, over to you. Any comments?
Yeah, I do have a few. Again, thank you for the opportunity to review this development proposal. I'm excited about this one as well. I think it will be a tremendous asset to the community, and just so long as we can get some of these conditional uses lined up to address the concerns that have already been voiced by the public. And so where I want to start with some of these, and Trevor, I might have missed this when you first reviewed your packet, but I think I'm piecing some of this together. But the trail running on the north side of this property, is that dangerous because of the wetlands and the canal?
No, we were concerned that it would just be isolated. It would provide an additional access point for the business. It's not public view, and so it would kind of encourage maybe some immoral behavior of multiple varieties, right? Not just what you're thinking. Just kidding. But
What were you thinking, Trevor?
vandalism is the biggest one. But no, that was the concern, is that because it was a single use property, and there was merchandise that needed to be protected. We knew there was already going to be a fence between that trail and the property itself, plus the freeway fencing. We just felt that would be better to pull that off and have that more in the front. We do feel like, because it's a 10-foot sidewalk with a 7-foot park strip, it provides that additional buffer from the traffic impact. So that's why we discussed that with the developer. But again, that is up to the planning commission to decide if that's an exception.
I'm going to say that I disagree, and here's why. I'm not sure if we can ever really say that crime will or will not happen where we want it to happen. And there are other parts of trails that are not part of public view. So I'm not fully understanding the logic as to why we don't put it on that north side. And I guess I'm further concerned about putting it along the frontage of this particular development. I'm concerned about the traffic coming and going. And I think we had a public comment that was submitted to us via the public comment email that I share a similar concern. And with regard, or what that's in regards to, is we do have a lot of residents, myself included, that enjoy being able to walk or bike or skateboard or what have you along this road and go over to the Sentinel Trail on the other side of Highway 84. And I just want to be able to provide a safe environment for that. And so I guess while I'm not opposed to having it on the frontage, I guess I'm concerned about having a sidewalk be the main component of our active transportation plan in this area. If there are accommodations that we can make along the frontage, if we can't get it on the north side of this development, I would like to see maybe a lane divided bike lane along that north side of Old Fort Road, and as it goes over onto Adams Avenue, just so that there's a little bit more protection there for those who are biking or who like to go and use the trails on the other side of 84. So I guess what I'm proposing is that we try to look at a trail on the north side first and foremost, and if we can accommodate a trail on that north side, I would like to be able to provide some more safety features associated with a dedicated bike lane along Old Fort and 475, the frontage of this property.
One other
I don't know.
thing, Taylor, that was a consideration was typically when pedestrian traffic or active transportation is utilizing trail systems, it's often the least, they don't take the longest route, right? So by providing a trail that circumvents the property on the northern portion, and then eventually connects back up to Old Fort Road to continue that trail connection out, we also were just concerned that people would bypass that trail anyways, and therefore it would just be a trail that wouldn't be used by the public, and they would use the sidewalks and the road.
So I appreciate it. I agree with you. The straightest or the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? I get that, and I feel like depending upon, we never saw how the trees were going to be addressed on the north side of this property. From my perspective, and this is only my opinion, if there was a trail that went through those trees on the north side of that property, and it provided me a safer passage for me and my family, I would probably take the extra time and go ahead and go that route. So I guess I just want to echo some of the other concerns that we heard in our from the public on that topic, and look to maybe have a greater conversation with the other planning commissioners on that topic and how they feel about how this integrates into our active transportation plan.
Are you asking a question, Taylor? Sorry.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm actually in favor of the trail in the front because it makes a 17-foot wide buffer zone between the road and the fence, if my math was correct. So I think there's a lot of value that comes from that, and I don't think there's a huge safety concern there with visibility. I think the way that they lined up the way that visibility is going to be a concern there. But again, I don't think we're expecting 30 motorhomes like constantly running through that exit or the entrance either. So I just don't see, like, I understand your concern for sure, but I feel like that buffer in the front on Old Fort Road is a better use of that space, is kind of where my head was at, but I'll open it up for somebody who disagrees for sure. But
Oh, I actually kind of agree with what Taylor's saying, because I've had the same concerns about just the crossing, in front of the two entrances. Well, the one exit only, and then the entrance. Just if you do have, bikes and people walking and just cars moving in and out, just wanting to make sure that we're designating that there is crossing. I know there's not an intersection, so it's not like we're going to have any kind of, light controlled crosswalks, anything like that, which might be a future discussion. But we do want to make this area, I like that it is landscaped and not just rock. I know we need to be obviously water conscious, but that doesn't just mean rock. I think there's a lot of things, especially if we are having kids and bikers, you have a kid that's not quite stable on the bike and they tip over. I don't want them falling on rock, so grass or some, we're not going to have the same issues I think that we've got on the east end of town where it's just going to blow away. but it's not to say that you're not gonna have, I don't know what the word is, where it just falls onto the sidewalk and has to be cleaned up. One concern with all the trees that are going into the park strip, I know it's been brought up, the size of the trees. My other concern is, obviously, we're using this as a trail, and people walking, we don't want them running into tree branches. And just the maintenance of that, and when something falls over, just how that's gonna be addressed. That was one of the thoughts that I had. I don't know if you wanna just keep talking on this one point, or
Well, I
Taylor had
think,
other things.
yeah, I think we'll give Taylor an opportunity to make other points, but if there are other comments specifically related to where they're placing the trail in the current proposal, I think we can vet that out.
I appreciate the further explanation as to, kind of the consideration for it going along the north end. And I kind of see the benefit of it staying on the south end. Do we know how many trees along that north end are going to be able to stay? Because there's some significantly sized trees. And I know when we had our RV park going in, there was a lot of trees that we thought were going to be able to stay to create buffers that ended up having to come out because of disease and, whatnot. Have we had any kind of assessment done along the 84?
No,
Tree
as far as our
line.
property, none of them would stay, would all come.
They would
down.
all come down.
That's correct.
Okay. And is there any, do we know how many trees potentially that is?
I do not, off the top of my head.
Okay.
But the landscape plan, considers replacing everything that we're losing. that we're taking
Well,
out.
taking out, but replacing it in a completely different area, and there's
Sure.
no way you're gonna replace the size. And I will admit, I'm very disappointed in the landscape plan, because I'm one that wants to see the details, and black and white, I can't differentiate.
So a lot of those trees though are, I think, off of their property,
property.
closer to the freeway.
Correct,
Okay.
there's some
I
in the
could
right
be
of way.
wrong,
So
but
if you're
yeah.
talking
That's what I
about
don't
our
know.
property, those go.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, there's still gonna be cotton there between highway and, or the freeway and the property.
Okay. I know, I was trying to look at the map.
They're like in between the wetland.
This was I know they keep do this.
Yeah.
Did you have any comments about the trail itself
Trail.
before we turn back over to Commissioner Walton?
I will share that, there are similar promenades, if you will, that exist like in West Ogden, in some of the redeveloped areas of Ogden that are 16 feet wide, which is like, two sidewalks really like, combined together. And, you are surpassing that with 17 feet. 10 feet of concrete sidewalk and the 7 feet of park strip. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's a huge investment in our community. That horizontal development is rarely seen. I looked at the landscape plan. Most of the trees that are along the perimeter, they're 2-inch caliber. Those are good sized trees to start off. I'm a fan of a lot of, big dream things, but, I think that, having that wide trail there, I think really helps make a safe community. And as, Commissioner Losi had said about, potentially putting lighted, flashy light thingies on the places where the entrance and exit are, I'm in favor of that too, because, I've got kids and, I know how hard it is to control them when they're on wheels sometimes. The area between this development and the freeway, I wish there was a trail there. Yeah, and I think, in my experience, trails are not supposed to be closest distance between A and B. I think trails are designed to put you away from A and B so you can enjoy, places that are, off the beaten path, if you will. So, if that ever did come to fruition that we could have a trail back there, I'm in favor of that. And
yeah, there's a lot of trails that, are dark and scary. We have like 50 miles of trail in the Weaver County area, Weaver Davis County area. And they're not all lighted, and so, some have bums that live alongside them in some cases, and over by the Ogden Business Exchange.
It's in Riverdale too.
Yeah, and Riverdale, yeah. And so, on that premise, the fact that we have such a well-lit, open place for people to bike and walk and jog and rollerblade or do whatever, I think that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Just a final comment on this, just mainly because the interfacing, obviously with the entrances and exits. There's not a gate, correct? Over the one exit only?
There will be.
There will be a gate? Is
Absolutely.
it like a motion,
This-
open, close,
So,
or?
yeah, for exiting the property, it would be a motion for a vehicle to come out,
Okay,
certainly, but
Okay.
you would have time to react. The gate is 30 foot and
so it's not
It
something
takes
that's
a
left
minute and a
open
half.
during business hours,
No,
like
it would
closed
not
at
be.
night, but it's,
So
okay,
security is a serious concern, and we don't allow customers to even walk the lot.
is that gonna be
by
the
themselves.
same
They have
as
to be
the,
built.
475 entrance, the main entrance?
That one will also be closed most of the time unless someone's coming in for service. So yeah, both of those gates will be closed
Okay.
unless somebody's actually going.
So the
in and out.
main entrance that's off of 475,
The main
that's the one I'm
entrance
talking
is
about.
open to customer parking, the automobile parking up front.
okay,
And then if you want to go back to where the RVs are,
that's
where-
all closed and a gate and
you got it.
controlled access,
Right.
okay.
So the upfront stuff is your typical car parking.
Is there
employees and
signage?
customers.
Because I know that was one of the things that was, sorry, because this is again, with the signage that we're putting in, can there be a crosswalk caution, like just some kind of safety signage
Yeah, I
that's
would,
put?
I would be all for it. I have a 3-year-old at home and he doesn't listen to me at all. So I get it.
So that's a
I
good
get
one.
it. I'd probably pay for someone to come out and grab them before they tried to cross the. Yeah, I think that we could definitely do something like
Just
that.
things
But
to improve
a
it.
sign with lighted caution signs, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do that.
And, Commissioner Walden had mentioned, having some sort of divider between a bike lane and the traffic on the overpass to get to the other side. I know that's not completely you, I know that you'll probably, contribute a little bit to that, the impact on that overpass there as, customers come onto, your property from the freeway. I would not say that that's 100% your responsibility, but something maybe to consider is maybe an impact fee, that can help the city pay for, or look at something that can provide a safer, route across that overpass for bikers and pedestrians. Because, yeah, that's something that's, is tricky for, joggers, and pedestrians, and bikers.
Commissioner Boatright, did you have any comments about the trail location?
No, because I don't use trails pretty much. I'm the guy walking in the middle of the road in the neighborhood. So, yeah. So I will use the sidewalk now. So now that I've been called out, so.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Bolton, back to you.
All right, so keeping going down on my list here, Commissioner Boatright, I think I'm going to counter one thing that you said, and that was you're not a fan of having these intersections line up. I guess my counter to it would be to say that I am in favor of them lining up. Just in the event that we ever need any signalization at those intersections, it becomes a whole lot easier to manage. But I'll just offer my 2 cents on that and leave it there.
Hey, can I interject real quick, Commissioner Walton? Sorry. I had a question about that. Is that a UDOT requirement? Because I remember, or is that only on South Weaver Drive where they require that all intersections line up like that?
It's just dependent on the traffic authority, right?
Okay.
Our engineer likes those to line up. It creates less friction points for vehicular traffic. An argument can be made for pedestrian traffic that it does slow and limit that. the danger is when you have two offsetting access points that two people can be turning and conflict at the same time and not realize it because they're not directly across from each other. And so it just limits those conflicting
You mean they're
points.
not paying attention?
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it is
Say
a
what the real
requirement,
number
in almost every community I do business in now.
That they line
That
up.
they line up, yeah, they're exactly opposite. not
Yeah.
even A
Yeah.
foot offset.
I'm not a traffic engineer. I apologize.
I'm not either.
Our
Yeah,
our
it's been
engineer did
changing over
encourage
the years,
the
so.
the matching of Old Maple End of, now I can't remember the street, 6-5 something. I have to look that up.
All right, sorry, Commissioner Walton, I just wanted to get some clarity there.
No, I thank you for asking the additional question. I think it's a good one. So the other thing is lighting. I think every planning commission member is going to probably have questions on lighting. It was a great topic that our residents brought up. And I just have some very specific questions related to the lighting plan. And so I'm not sure if I was following or saw it at any point, but do we know the height of some of these lights?
Should be listed on the spreadsheet below on that page, L 201. Should have.
Oh, I missed it there.
I don't see any.
And if they're not on that, then there should be a separate page. It may not be in that package. Is it 21 feet? Okay. That's what the RVs are, whatever, 12 foot high, 10 foot to 12 foot, depending on. So we need to be up above those, but we don't need to be like a sports stadium where you're 40, 30 foot, 5 foot, 30, 40 foot.
Are all of them that high?
Most of them will be in that, where the RVs are parked, and then the automobile parking will be whatever needs for the parking. So they're probably.
So there will be a variety of heights.
There could be, yeah. So really what the battle is to provide sufficient lighting for people to safely walk to their cars or to the RV if they're caught out there, or back to the building, but also not cast light past the property line, right? So that's why you have to hire these kind of companies to do this kind of work, and it's tricky, right? So some poles might be only 18 feet, one might be 21, and the pole may have 3 fixtures on it. This one only has 2 because and they're downlit, and they're called shoe boxes, so you don't really see the glare from the roads. You don't have that that glare when you're driving or in your home. So hopefully you don't see.
When you're saying shoebox, do you mean like capped? Like they've got a cover?
It looks like a shoebox
Literally looks like a
upside down
shoebox.
Oh.
Yeah.
with light shining out of it.
The lights inside of it. And
Is that on the building or on the poles?
You can do both.
Okay,
Here, I'll show you a picture.
I think I know. No, I know what he's talking
I mean, I researched all these part numbers, the Galleon series, and they're all LED downlights. And yeah, they do a great job of really containing that light.
Yeah, they do. Things have gotten better over the last 10 years, really. And they've gotten better over the last 50 years, though. 10 years is just leaps and bounds.
Yeah, very directional light.
Yeah.
Commissioner Walton, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh,
we keep
so
interrupting you.
No, it's just fine. I think it's valuable conversation. I didn't quite hear the height. It came through a little faint.
Oh,
Did I
he
hear
was
20?
saying that it was varying heights depending on where it's located on the property.
So the light poles that are gonna be where the RVs and the campers are gonna be displayed for sale will be 20 to 21 feet, but the parking that's gonna be in like the customer parking section, it will probably be lower, but he didn't know for sure.
Okay,
Does that
so
help?
I guess my next question would probably be to Trevor.
Mhm.
Trevor, I'm struggling to know how the proposed lighting plan complies with our dark skies initiatives within the city. And I'm just not seeing a strong correlation to the fact that we have that initiative and how this plan complies to it.
We do. It requires those shoe boxes basically, right? It requires the light to be covered and not to cast off of the property. Our code requires that you cannot see the light source from outside of the property. So you would have to be directly under or nearby on the property to see that. It all is downward cast. There's no upward cast, and that the lumens itself kind of limit that as well. So it all complies within that. It all is contained on the property. And when Brandon reviewed this, he saw that it met those requirements.
All right, so to that point, help me understand the southwest corner of the lighting plan. It seems to me like there's quite a bit of light coming off of those lights on that portion of the property.
Here, let me zoom in on mine.
My understanding there, Taylor, and then Trevor can confirm. My understanding is that all the exterior lights are pointed inward. They're not casting a light in this big circle like a street light, that they're all pointing in towards the property. But you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
I guess, can you help me understand where you're seeing that it's leaving the property?
Yeah, there's the values in the southwest corner are much higher than at any other point in the development.
Right, like the 6.8, 8.0, 7.2, 7.8. Yeah. He's talking about right there at the start of the curve as you're leaving the development.
I can't read that because the writing is so small. And anyone's got like a 500 strength reader glass.
I can't even read it.
I'm just looking at it on Acrobat on my phone, so.
I'm even zooming in and I still can't read what you're reading. Okay. Yeah, it is brighter.
At the entrance.
Yeah.
No, it's not at the entrance. It's kind of right where the road, as you're going west along the south part of the property, when you start into the curve.
You start to go north. Yeah, well, we also have that extra area. Our land goes all the way to the road. So we have room to bleed over if we needed to, but we don't, I don't think we do. I think the light ends right at that straight line.
Okay, by the way, just for the record, I didn't realize that those are actually numbers and values of light. It literally looks just like a cross tag on the thing. So if anybody else is on the same page as me, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how to read those things either, so.
Yeah,
We hire the
I knew that
engineer.
finger somewhere, so I kept zooming in. So I'm not sure if I heard the explanation to why that there's so much light. Was it because the fence is there and didn't extend, the study didn't extend all the way to the end of the parcel or the development area?
Well, I don't know exactly what you're looking at. I'd have to come over and take
I think he's talking that red line. Right there at the curve, it's that red line, and then there's that area that doesn't have any of the light values, which we now know are light values, being displayed.
Yeah,
Yep.
those are lumens per square foot.
Can't read any numbers.
Those are numbers?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. They're numbers.
These are really big.
Or like, I think it's foot candles. And you have to have like so many foot candles per square foot.
Those are actual numbers. Hey, you might want to
Gosh,
check it.
Good job. I would have never known.
So typically,
Just cross hatching.
Could you come to the microphone? So,
Sure.
because Taylor can't hear you.
stand right there, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I haven't seen where exactly we're doing that extra lighting, but probably what's happening is maybe we had to add a third fixture or a second fixture to cast more light to get over a bigger expanse where we don't have a pole, right? Because we've got big RVs that can't crash into the pole. So the light is still staying on our property. There's just more of it in that one area, right? So because you got to get it out. So that's my guess.
Yeah, I guess my question on that,
Yeah.
and maybe
Yeah.
will be part of my recommendation, it would be that we look at that corner, because it seems like all the other values around the perimeter of the property are much, much lower. This one seems high, and since we have the ability to direct the light based upon the fixture, look at especially that corner and minimize just how much light would be coming out off of that corner. And then I did have one other question regarding lighting, and that was, we talk about the overhead lighting. Sometimes lighting is placed on the side of the buildings that doesn't seem to really comply with the dark sky initiatives that we have, meaning that you can see the source of the light and there really is no restriction on casting that light out, and do contribute a great deal of light pollution to the area. And again, it's hard to tell from the lighting plan if those building lights are going to be mitigated in a similar fashion. But I've seen it in other locations where, you know, it may not be the overhead lighting that's your biggest contributor to light pollution and impacting the surrounding community. So again, difficult to tell from the light plan, but was curious to know if you have answers there.
Those will be shoebox style light fixtures as well, so they'll all be downcast.
Okay, great.
Are those, just to follow a question on that, are they mounted on the side of the building
They
or are they in the grass pointed up?
No, they're mounted on the side, down,
So the wall packs?
right,
Yeah.
wall pack, exactly. Shoebox wall pack.
Got it.
So one last question on lighting, and that had to do with hours of operation. I think we heard several requests to see if we could diminish the amount of light that was needed on the site. I know security is paramount for your operations, but didn't know if that was something that we could take into consideration when we start talking about conditional uses or conditions on the use.
Are you talking about specific hours of operation as far as?
You're right. I worded that kind of strange. What I'm saying is there changes in the lighting conditions that would accommodate less light coming off the site outside of normal business operations. Or
Okay,
hours of
so if I understand your question, you're talking about minimizing or reducing the light after hours. Is that?
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And over like Sundays when they're closed, like weekends, when most people are home.
Anything else, Commissioner Walton?
No, I guess that was a question to the developer.
Oh, I see.
Well, we've never been asked to do that. I can take it to our lighting folks and see if there's a way to do that. But our foot candles are already extremely low. So I don't know how much more we can do. We really need to be at the property lines for the security that we need as well. So, but we do have I think a pretty good buffer between our property and the street and then the residential area. So I would ask that you take that into consideration as well.
No, and I appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate the fact that you have security concerns that you want to address. And I think what we hear over and over from our residents is they appreciate the small town nature and feel of the community. And I think, you know, I see the potential where the amount of light that comes off this site could have a detrimental impact to that. So I sincerely appreciate your willingness to at least consider it and look to see how we can reduce the amount of light coming off the site to the maximum extent possible. So again, appreciate that effort.
Absolutely.
So that's all the questions that I really had on lighting. I was curious about fencing. And I read that, you know, the 6 foot fence, vinyl coated. Given that security is a concern to you, are you proposing any barbed wire fencing?
We are not. We don't do that anymore. But no, it's we tend to go. I think I mentioned earlier with the motion sensors and the camera. So that served us pretty well. We're catching more people, and so that's kind of limiting thefts. So
Okay,
not
great.
zero,
Glad to hear it.
but getting better.
Glad to hear it. Another site or a question that I had was about water use on the site, specifically as it relates to keeping the vehicles clean. I didn't see a wash bay or anything associated with the facility itself, but I don't know if you can speak to how you might use water on the site.
So wash bays, we don't really have a wash bay, but most of the service bays have trench drains in them in case a vehicle needs to be washed after service. But typically, you know, it gets delivered. If it's dirty, it gets washed. it may get washed again, when you, before the customer comes to pick it up, but the guys aren't out there washing 300 vehicles every day or anything like that. It's not that type of business. So you'll have your display units that the customer will see, and then you'll have the inventory. So the inventory, most of what you see on that drawing is inventory, right? So we have to have the unit to sell the unit, but the displays are the ones that the customers are gonna go in and out of.
Okay.
So the meat of that, the lion's share, won't be washed every week or 2 weeks and the turnover for all those RVs is generally about 3 months. So it takes 3 months or so to sell the entire lot. So if anyone has concerns about how much traffic we generate, it's not a lot. If we sell 8 units in one day, that's a big day. So, as you know,
Great, thank you.
working at RV, hang a banner. That
So
would-
I'm trying to think of, the 2 years that I worked at an RV place, and I don't even think I washed a trailer once. I mean, it was rare. It was, like you said, when they come in, if they're dirty, and then when they leave.
Right, because they're not gonna get that dirty just sitting on the lot, right?
It's
So once
not
they're
a car
clean,
dealership.
That's right. It's not,
Functions a little different.
you're not selling a brand new BMW where it's gotta be shiny and, I mean, they wanna look nice, but it's not as important. People like the inside.
Yeah.
I appreciate you answering that question. I know it's one that I wasn't tracking when I read the package, but wanted to address one of the questions coming out of public comments. And
Sure.
what I think is my last question, and it had to relate to one of the comments that we got during the public comment period. And I guess it's not a question so much as it is a comment that I wanted to address, and that is the interchange or intersection at 475 East and Old Fort Road, AKA the sweeping T. It's been a contentious intersection there. Some people love it, some people hate it. And I just wanted to address the fact that we simply didn't have the room to provide a whole lot of other solutions. So a roundabout wasn't going to fit. And as much as we like to maybe see something different, I don't think we're going to be able to. And that was not going to be part of an impact associated with this development. So I just wanted to address that comment for our public comment period. But other than that, I think that's the end of my questions. I appreciate you answering them.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah,
Okay.
I could use the water.
Do you want a water?
Other than that.
Do you want to go grab one? Look at the jumping there.
Look at,
Everybody's
yeah.
jumping.
You're all right.
Anybody else want a water?
I'll share money.
Yes, Commissioner Losi, if you'd like to give a minute. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. We haven't even hit the 2-hour mark and people are leaving. Go.
Lightweights.
We mean no offense. We actually do appreciate everybody being here, so I hope they know that.
You will.
No, that's typically not, we don't typically reopen the comments. However, if, right.
Yeah,
The
city
city
council.
council will take this
Yeah.
up, so if you wanted to make some more public comments, that's possible there as well.
And at that point, just so you know, it's during the public comment and you can direct it to the entire council. And you can just say, hey, based on the discussion at planning commission and the answers given, we had some additional questions, and just phrase it that way.
That's typically how it falls. Now, it's at the discretion of the city council and the mayor, so, but, yeah. All right, Commissioner Losi, go ahead.
Okay, so I just had some questions and they haven't been brought up yet. So I'm hoping this will maybe re-energize everybody a little bit, stretch it out. Is there a public or private dump that's going to be on site that people will be utilizing at all?
Dump meaning.
RV dump, like RV dump cleaning out, like we
Oh,
have
so
sewer
not-
clean out, nothing like that is on
Not
site,
public,
not public.
but for us, yes, we do have a sanitary lead in a
Okay.
water, so we can fill and we can dump.
Okay, but
Yeah,
that's only,
because we
is
don't-
that back in the fenced area?
It's in the fence, yeah, you wouldn't see.
So
it.
no public
You
access,
would not see
anything
it.
like that?
No, absolutely.
Perfect.
No, it's back in the,
Um,
up by the building,
by the building? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
offset from the building.
Okay.
Not like next to the building.
I couldn't see it anywhere on the plan.
I can
but
show you. if
They're
you pull
hard.
it up.
Right there. Okay, perfect. But again, private, not public.
That's right.
It does look like you also have a filling station, where you're filling the natural gas, correct, for the propane tanks, things
That's
like
correct.
that. Is that open for public?
No.
Okay, so that's again, private only for your customers.
Absolutely.
Because I just had some questions about any storage of any hazardous chemicals on site, and any potential disposal of those items, if that's happening.
I think we've got the thumbs up from the state.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna bring up something that nobody's really mentioned, and it's the building materials. I appreciate being able to see kind of the design and the frontage and all of that. Obviously, this is gonna be the first commercial development that we have on the west end of town. Most of the commercial development that we have has been located here on the east end. And there's an aesthetic and a look, and I think something that we're trying to achieve here in not only representing our community of South Weaver, but giving it that mountain feel, that, you know, I don't want to say small town, hometown, but just something that feels and blends in with our surrounding mountains, with our, you know, hills, with all of that. Has there been any thought to giving, because this looks like the primary is stucco, the primary material is stucco or cement?
Should be concrete, precast.
Concrete,
Mhm.
okay. Is there any way that there can be like stone or wrought iron, or what is it, not wrought iron, steel, to kind of match some of the design elements that we have, again, on our existing commercial?
Well,
Has there been thought to that?
the reason we went with this concept is due to the sound from the Air Force Base.
Okay.
We don't typically do precast. We typically do brick and architectural metal panels, a very different look.
Mhm.
This was what we were told was the ideal look and feel, fit and finish for this area. So that's why we designed it this way.
It
Like I said,
looks
this is
very
not-
industrial to me. And again, I'm trying to create that cohesiveness between the surrounding neighborhoods. And I know a lot of the newer homes that have been built use woodwork, hard party board, you know, stone, brick. So I didn't know, am I the only one that thinks that?
I think it looks
On the
good
commission?
personally.
When you talk about cohesiveness, there's not cohesiveness in our neighborhood.
No.
I mean,
I think in terms of like building materials though.
I
I don't think we have any cement cast homes,
it's,
at least none that I've seen. I don't know.
They're just two
it's not
different
appealing
uses.
to me.
Yeah, we don't have residential
No.
finishes on Maverick or the stuff across the street. I do think I know what you're trying to say, though. You
The
know,
wood beams.
yeah,
we
yeah,
do have
exposed
some-
timbers.
Yep.
there's exposed timbers on the sign that holds all the different, businesses on the north side of the road. There's, Maverick has put a lot of different exposed timbers into theirs. One thing maybe to consider, because like I understand the importance of this building type not having anything combustible, but it being a tilt-up building, is it a tilt-up?
It is not, it's
Not-
precast.
Precast, okay.
So off-site and then stood up on-site.
And yeah, sometimes
No,
they
tilt-
can give kind of a wood look in the concrete, but
Oh, like design in the
Yeah.
concrete. Yeah, so, and that may be, once we get down to the details, just to give it a little something extra, for
Yeah.
sure. Just like you would do with a drive-it or a, yeah.
Because I just look at that one, I believe it's the left elevation where it's all of the service bays, and that just,
that's facing the freeway.
thankfully,
Yeah.
not any of the residential, but. And granted, it'll be covered up by most of the inventory and like that's around that side of the
You
development.
won't see that.
No.
On either side.
Okay,
So
um,
can I just one more comment on that? In my 3 years on the planning commission, we've always talked about this look of South Weaver. Nobody has ever defined it.
we've tried.
We've tried, but we haven't. So I
Burley Burger.
What did somebody say, mountain, they were trying to call it mountain something and they came in with like rebar and,
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair for us to try to impose something that we have yet to define ourselves. I understand the concept,
mhm,
but until we have something set in stone,
it's hard to
it's
ask.
just arbitrary.
Well, if I'm the only one that's not in love with it, that's fine. I understand it's an RV center, it's a business, it's not a house. I know we talked about signage. It would have been nice to have seen kind of what your signage is.
It's on the,
No, like that's in the landscaping that's gonna be off
Oh, sure.
the building,
Yeah, like I
just to
said,
know height,
it would be
things like that,
ground mounted sign, probably this tall.
6 feet tall,
Yeah.
4 feet tall.
I don't know what it's, whatever your signage ordinance allows, yeah.
What do I not
So-
understand?
When we, go, they have to submit for a sign permit.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when all of that is reviewed. Does that
Okay.
make sense? So we review the location.
Completely outside of the preliminary and the final.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, it's a totally separate
Okay.
application. So those, we don't even know if the ones on that rendering are allowed.
Are
That's just, we just put that on there.
Okay.
As a holder.
No, I appreciate that clarification. I think for the most part, the discussion that's taken place among the commission and also with just public comment, brought up a lot of the things that I had. The landscaping and the fencing, I don't like chain link. I think that there's something that can be done better, partially because if you're looking for a more secure chain link, you can scale. You can climb up on it, you can cut it. But if you had something that was more of a vertical wrought iron bar and maybe something that was interspersed, with like a masonry wall to still allow the see-through and the visual that you need for security, but also to provide that buffer to the surrounding neighborhoods. I do also kind of like the discussion about a berm and raising that up a little bit, because again, it's that interface between the neighborhoods, the people utilizing the trail and the sidewalk, and what is it we're trying to create. And I think there's something really neat that could be done here. I just don't think a chain link fence is it. So.
Anything else?
That's, I think everything else has been discussed.
Commissioner McFadden, any additional comments?
Yeah, just a few. I like being cleanup. All my questions mostly have been asked. I've really studied the landscape plan, having studied a lot of different landscape plans in the past. This has a lot of depth and height to it. And I think that like once it's implemented, I think it's going to really be something. And I think, it's very likely that fence is going to just disappear.
We think so too.
Because you've got columnar poplars, you've got, big, berry bushes, you've got rocks of different sizes. There's really a cool variety. Yeah. I wanted a question to Trevor and the staff. Is there any restriction against chain link?
No, there's no restriction in our code against chain link. I think when we're considering conditional uses, it's important to remember, and I'm not saying nothing's impossible. Saying remember that we need to make sure that those conditions are actionable and that they are to mitigate any health, safety, or welfare concern for the area. And so if we're considering fencing into a conditional use, we have to be very careful on making sure that it protects health, safety, and welfare for the residents and for the business. But mainly it's the external impacts to the residents that we're looking at, not to the business. That's their own liability, is the external detriments to the area. And so, but they can use chain link fence. The only provision is on the northern side where it requires that masonry fence unless waived by the planning commission or reduced by the planning commission.
Okay. And yeah, I guess, that being said, if you guys do find it within your budget to maybe replace that chain link with wrought iron or those more vertical look, I would definitely request that. It looks nicer.
Can I add in, even if it's just along the south community facing neighborhood
Right,
and where
yeah.
people will be utilizing the trail, that would be huge. If along the north and the east property boundary where it's just the power, is that the substation that's over there? Where there's not going to be any trails, there's not going to be any walkways, sidewalks. If that needs to be chain linked to help with obviously the cost, I'm open to that. And I think it's a good compromise that, you give a little, you get a little. And I do think we're getting a good plan here. It's just, let's make it great.
So can I just ask one point of order on that? I might have missed this, Trevor. We're not in a position to enforce a design standard on fencing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Well, but in the case that they're asking for a reduction in the landscaping for exceptional design, I do think we have a little bit of leeway
Discretion.
to ask for it. Because they're
Fair
asking for a reduction from the 15% to 10. Again, it's the concession.
We can ask for it, but we can't force it, I
No.
think is the idea, yeah.
And to Commissioner Losey's point, though, you do have the ability to recommend approval or denial on that variation. It doesn't need to go to the city council for approval, right? But that is something that you can approve, recommend approval. or
We get to
denial
let
on.
them make the final decision.
No pressure, guys. Commissioner McFadden, anything else?
That's it.
Great. Well, I'd like to first thank all the commissioners for their thoughts. I think this has been really healthy discussion. Thank you, Kevin, for standing up there for so long.
That might be a record for
Um,
standing up.
yeah, I think I had all my questions answered as well. I want to do one more double check real quick to make sure I wasn't missing
One
something.
more.
Yeah, go ahead.
The plans for the historical marker. And
there.
I know it's there,
Oh,
making sure that it's not, I don't know. The respect and I think the acknowledgement for its historical significance is only improved and not diminished in any way. So, and I didn't see anything in the plans that kind of specifically addressed that. And I don't know if it was there, just maybe not included in the packet. But I know that's something that it was mentioned, and just making sure that that was, our history, part of South Weaver is kept and maintained and even improved upon. Gary, I would have thought you would have had more to say about that,
I was just waiting for the opportunity.
Mr. Historian.
So yeah, we need to keep that marker, and not just for us, but for the Daughters of the Utah Pioneers, and I think the Sons of the Utah Pioneers are the ones who did that. I would be happy. Well, I don't know if this is a conflict of interest, but I have a relationship with those groups due to my profession. Be happy to work with them on the possibility of moving it to a better location if it needs to be. I think this plan gives an opportunity to have it moved somewhere.
I would like our engineer to speak to that.
Okay.
Don't mind.
So if you look at the site plan drawing,
Would you just state your name real quick first?
Wesley Stewart with Gardner Engineering.
Thank you.
We do show it being just shifted just slightly to the west. It only moves 3 or 4 feet from where it is right now. It's currently it would conflict with where the sidewalk and trail is going. And so that's the reason that it's getting shifted just a little bit into the park strip.
Do you have a page number or is it on the land?
It's on the site plan.
Yeah.
It's also on the demolition plan that shows to protect and relocate it. It's on a couple locations there, but if you look at sheet, I think it's CE 201 or 101. I think CE 201 or 101, excuse me.
No, go up 6 pages. 16.
So, and yeah, and we noticed that too. That's definitely something we wanted to save and protect and
One more.
realize the value of that to the community and those that erected the monument. So, yeah.
Oh, maybe it-
One more back. Take it. One more. That's 102. So right there, if you zoom in, I don't know if you can zoom in, but it's on the left-hand side there. Once that reloads.
Yeah, it might actually be one more. Kim, it'll give you one more.
It'll be one more.
Mhm.
Yep, it's on that sheet. Just slide down a little bit and you can see it. It's just to the south of the drive access.
It's not letting like scrolling very much. No. Okay, my computer's not cooperating anymore.
Well, once Connex gets installed. Right, there's probably a call out there.
Where's that pipe?
One off to the left.
Oh, yeah.
Rack marker?
No,
Down.
Down there where it's, yeah.
It's even labeled existing historic.
Thank you. Carrie, did you have any?
There's just one
No,
thing.
I'm good.
You had your chair.
I know, I have one other thing.
Go ahead.
The only, I do want to make sure that the exit only, has only a right turn only. I don't want that being a left-hand turn, because one of the concerns I didn't bring up, and I apologize, is that my biggest fear is someone's gonna be coming off of 84. They're gonna miss the entrance, because people, driving, it could happen. And at that point, they are literally sweeping T down into the neighborhoods, and those neighborhoods are not going to be easy to traverse if you've got a truck and a 33-foot trailer behind you. And there is not currently a roundabout or any space to sufficiently turn around a vehicle. That's still a concern I have. I don't know how we can address that based on the intersection that we have to work with.
Is there any ability of the city to put up a sign, proud of those entries to the neighborhood that says no business traffic or no commercial traffic?
That's something we could talk to our public works about.
Yeah.
Because I think if they get to that point where maybe someone realizes, oh, I'm stuck, and then they see those signs, that kind of becomes they run in, hey, can you open up the gate, and they can go into the exit. But that's a concern that I had with only that one point. And hey, I have a camper, I drive it, I don't back it up because I can't do it. So
So just for clarity, for my own purpose, you're talking about for anybody that would normally go in the main entrance, they miss the entrance, and now they're looking for a place to
and
turn
now
around.
they're on Old Fort Road with no place to go because you can't turn around there. And there's not an entrance going in.
Got it.
There's just that exit coming out. And I do think too, to prevent the campers and people that aren't familiar with the area thinking, hey, I've got to get to 89, I'm going to turn left. Now I'm going through a neighborhood that, again, it's not a neighborhood that's just, oh, quick, I can get onto South Weaver Drive and head out.
Right.
You are driving through 3 different communities that have been connected, but are very distinct, separate communities.
Trevor, on that point, is that something that we can enforce, or is that something that is out of our, I feel like that's out of our purview per se, but
A little bit. I will say all of our roads, and those are all new roads built over there that are to city standard, do have the width of 36 feet of asphalt on them, and so they are standard widths that would accommodate RV traffic, and if you do need to turn around there, obviously not ideal. And once that road throughout the years is completed, that'll be less and less of an issue, but we don't anticipate it being a large issue. It could happen occasionally. But I don't know about enforcement because there's nothing in our code that prohibits RV travel on.
I think one thing that could be considered as well to help is signage coming as they get off of 84 on the west side of 475 to note that, entrance and 1,000 feet. I don't know if the code allows something like that, but
Yeah, we might be able to.
that
do
might
something.
help, but.
And there is no parking, correct, right now along Old Fort Road on the north side, which would be kind of buffering where this trail and the sidewalk, the 10-foot sidewalk and the parking strip. Is that a no parking zone, or does that allow for parking, street parking?
I believe that it could allow for parking. It's not red curved at all,
Okay.
and there's no sign prohibiting that.
Because that might be
But-
something, I don't know, if considering just so that we don't have people trying to park their trailers and trying to, you know what I'm saying, pulling up, no
I don't think you'll have that
issue?
I mean, they know what they're doing. They know their customer base. They know their customers aren't coming in a Mini Cooper. I think I would be shocked if we had people parking on the road. Now, you can tell me I'm wrong in a few years if I am, but based on what I've seen and my experience, I think they've provided plenty of space
Space for it.
for it.
That, I just had one other question, and thank you for still being there. The
Oh, you're
price-
fine.
The price point on these campers and RVs. Can you share
I
like what
just
it's gonna
build
be?
them, but if you want to go, I just built the building. But if you want,
Okay.
if you really want to know, that the website has got every price for everything.
It's a higher end product that you guys are selling,
no,
like
so
hundreds
they
of
sell
thousands,
all the
not,
brands. They sell every
Okay.
brand. So
Every
they'll
brand.
sell, sell those little, iPods, I think they called it, or like
okay.
$2,000. I think they do the pop-ups.
So there is a variety of price
Yeah,
points that's
absolutely.
gonna be provided.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
From what was explained to us, it's every type of RV from the little tow trailer to
Yeah, you could,
Okay.
yeah, we got Class A diesel pushers and,
All of that.
just little small
Fifth wheel.
towables, yeah.
Sorry, that was a random thought that I had that I was like, here's my chance.
I know a guy if you need if you're in need.
No, I'm good. I have a Keystone. I'm happy.
Okay, yeah,
Stuff.
we sell those too.
I know.
All right.
Looking to upgrade.
I got all my questions answered. So again, thank you.
Okay.
If you want to sit down, I think the next part is going to be more internal discussion, openly, of course, but, on any conditional uses that we feel like need to be debated and applied. So with that being said, I was talking with Trevor, and we think it's a good idea just to make sure that we're all on the same page on what we are and are not allowed to do with a conditional use. So Trevor, if you could just review that with us real quick, that'd be great.
You bet. So the state legislature put into code some limitations around conditional uses. So they define conditional uses, a land use ordinance that may include conditional uses and provisions for conditional uses that require compliance with standards set forth with an applicable ordinance. The conditional use shall be approved if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use in accordance with applicable standards. If the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of a proposed conditional use cannot be substantially mitigated by the proposal or the imposition of reasonable conditions to achieve compliance with applicable standards, the conditional use may be denied. That's a really high bar. I want to remind you that's a very high bar to hit that
Can we get
second
Jamie to
note.
decipher that for us?
That would be a Jamie question. If we, I'm not
He
saying
comes
this,
to city council meetings, right?
he does. I'm not saying this is a thing that might happen tonight, but if you did get to a point where you felt that that could be met, my recommendation would be to continue the item to another meeting so we can welcome our legal counsel in to guide us through that. If that's
So Jamie's the lawyer, the city lawyer.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and just in our own internal processes, how commercial conditional uses work is it's a recommendation from the planning commission to the city council. In residential conditional uses, it's a planning commission decision only. In commercial uses, it's a recommendation from planning commission to the city council to approve on those commercial conditions. Just a little note on applicable standards. It refers to guidelines in an ordinance to help determine the type and extent of conditions that may be imposed on a conditional use. These standards establish objective goals or levels of performance, which then guide decisions on conditions. And then detrimental impacts are those that impact public's health, safety, or welfare, and detrimental effects identified in our standards. So when we are considering those, nothing is off the table on considering those. I strongly encourage you to look at what those mitigating factors are mitigating themselves and what detrimental effects you're trying to lessen. A detrimental effect is not necessarily look and feel, although it could be if it's our code listed as obnoxious view, which is a very vague term. And so as we just talked through that, that's just a frame of mind to keep in mind. Nothing's off the table, not saying everything's ridiculous and you just have to do that. You just have to go with no conditions. That's not what I'm saying at all. We just need to make sure that they are actionable and reasonable to hold up.
And just to help get the conversation started, because I don't think we've asked this question, is there anything in the current proposal, how it is that goes against our code outside of the two requests that I heard, which is they want a reduction on the landscape from 15 to 10%, and they want that exception for the north side. Is that correct?
Yes, those are the two.
Everything else
exceptions
is
in our
within code. There's no
Mhm.
other exceptions being requested. Those are the only two things. Is that correct?
Correct. Oh, yeah, the northern fence. Hmm. Yeah, so that's the fencing on the northern portion of the property. I think we're talking the same thing. It's just, it's on the northern portion of the property, not the southern portion of the property.
Well, if that takes care of it.
Yeah, they're both closer to the freeway. So,
Okay. And then another point of clarity for me that I forgot to ask you, but in our code, and I should know this, but I for whatever reason I can't remember, but in our code we already have it written that any new development has to use native plants. I thought we changed that. Yes or no?
yeah, they are required to use water-wise landscaping. And it specifically points to the Weaver Basin list of approved plants. Looking through the plants to fit that requirement, we feel, and then a lot of it will be mulch, rock mulch, and drip irrigation, and so we do feel that fits that requirement on the landscaping.
Got it. Okay. All right. So having kind of set the stage there is, I think I'll just do another roundtable, and if anyone wants to bring any specific use up that you feel like we need to debate or we need to put as a conditional use. Gary, I'll start with you. That's all right. Gary wants to be last. All right. Commissioner McFadden, is there any conditional use that you had in mind that you'd like to debate or bring forward?
I'll just echo the same thing I mentioned before. If it's possible, if we can suggest that we put those wrought iron fencing along the south border of the property where it
Right.
is across the street from homes.
So that can't be a conditional use, but we can put it on record as we would recommend that the
Yep.
general RV and or the city council maybe talk about that to see if that can be somehow built in, but
Yep.
I don't think that's something that we can, or I know it's not something that we can
No,
demand or anything. Okay.
It could go with a reduction of landscaping as a negotiation, right? 5% landscaping on a 16-acre lot is a substantial amount of property. And so
Yeah.
it could be part of that conversation of that reduction of landscaping, but not as a conditional use.
okay.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Losi.
Okay, I'm trying to think how I want to say that. So this has nothing to do with the development proposal. It has more to do with our development proposal process and our approvals with the city right now that I'm frustrated a little bit with. Because I know they've come forward for the preliminary and the final. And I know there was a lot of discussion previously about having those separated because I feel like with the discussion, the comments, the feedback, the remarks, that the plan is good. It's in a preliminary state. And I would like to give the developer the opportunity to go back and maybe address the areas that they can and be able to come back for a final approval. And I feel right now, my hands are a little tied in terms of what do I recommend sending up to the plan or to the city council for their consideration, because I don't feel it's close. It's great. I do really like the idea of it, but I think there's things that, again, based on the discussion, the comments, that needs another work through. And so I don't know if that's the condition that we come back, continue. Is that my option at that
So-
point? Continue it?
So you can do a few different things. You can continue the whole item. You can, because there's separate portions of this development, right? There's the preliminary final subdivision plat.
Yep.
There's also the site plan, the landscaping plan, the improvement plans, the architectural review.
Mhm.
All of those are individual components to that. So you can approve the individual components that you feel could be approved or recommended to be approved,
Okay.
and then continue an item of those to another meeting for additional response. You could always deny if there's a reason based on code to deny, which
I
obviously
do
there are.
not feel that that's the case, unfortunately. It's a commercial highway zone. This is a conditional use that is approved in our city code. That's very clear. So,
But what the action is looking at the preliminary plan and the final subdivision plat.
mhm.
It's not the final plan. Is it?
Right, no, it's the preliminary plan in itself, which includes the site plan and improvement plans, landscape plan. And then the plat is a separate item
And
from
that's
those.
where I'm hung up, is because I think the plat and the dividing and removing the wetlands, I think that's good and ready to go. It's all of the other items, the landscaping, the lighting, even the design on the building, like, those are the things that need.
So you
So
can't,
Commissioner,
Judging.
if I can, I think the action in front of us is a recommendation of approval of the preliminary and final. So if there's a recommendation to the city council that you would like to have met just for their review so that they can approve on the preliminary or final, I think that would be something that we'd consider in our motion.
Right, so that, I think that incorporates if you're, or if we
I know, I'm trying to think how to articulate that.
aren't happy with the fencing, or
Mhm.
we're not happy with the, well, actually, I think the 10 to 15% is something that we're trying to make a decision on, actually,
Mhm.
so.
And
but
what is actionable, what is legal, what is within our parameters to do?
If we use the fencing as the example, I think if I heard Commissioner Walton correctly, is we would add in our recommendation to city council to review that with the developers, to see if there are other options that could be feasible based on public comment and our discussion tonight.
you could make the recommendation to review it, or you could make the recommendation to include that fencing as part of the landscape incentive to reduce the landscape. And then the council can consider that recommendation with their approval and choose to include it with their approval or remove that, right? That's kind of their prerogative at that point too. On the approval of conditional uses, they can make modifications, but you give that recommendation of what you would like to see to the city council. Okay.
So Commissioner Davis, with that in mind, this is going to be a monster motion, but I'd like to take a stab at it. If we can, or if you'd like to have some additional conversations, just let me know.
Well, I wanted to do just one quick pass to see if anyone wanted to debate anything first, and then we can get into the motion. If that's okay, Commissioner Walton. Did you have any? I think-
And that's fair. So,
Taylor.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Taylor.
I was just going to provide one point on the conditional use for consideration for the rest of the planning commission that I was considering. And that was a condition on the lighting plan and hours of diminished light coming off the site during hours of non-operation or during the nighttime. But that was the only condition to this use that I was seeking.
All right, if I could just repeat that, just to make sure I understand what you're looking for. This is going back to your previous conversation where you'd like to see a reduced light, like a dimming, basically after hours. Is that
correct?
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up or possibly debate, Commissioner Walton?
On the conditional use, no.
Okay. Commissioner Boatright, anything from you?
As I've looked at this, I agree with the lighting, but I also commend the builders for the efforts they made to the lighting so far. I mean, usually when something comes before us, we can find a laundry list of issues and concerns. This really is the best plan that I've seen on my time as a planning commission. I know there are concerns. I just can't really find anything to place a condition on. I do support the lighting. I don't know if that's possible though.
Yeah.
But I do support that. But I also think we could debate ad nauseum of what ifs. What if this happened? What if this happened? What if this happened? Well, I think just the overall safety, the overall plan, I think they've heard our comments. I'm trying to find something not to like about this, honestly. And well, we criticize chain link, but yet the city put up chain link fence around the park. And
No.
I mean, I don't know. We're asking somebody to do something that we're not willing to invest in ourselves.
That's recreation versus commercial, different zones, different other interfaces. You're right, we could go ad nauseam about
Yeah, but I do think this is a win for the city. I think it's a win for General RV. I live close to this neighborhood. I'm not as close as some of you. So I do understand the concerns. And I think there are steps we can mitigate with, specifically with the traffic, with additional signage to help people know where the entrance is so that we don't have them driving into the neighborhoods. So I don't know where I'm going. I'm just kind of rambling some thoughts, but so I think I've said what I want to say.
I think you and I, Commissioner Lord, we're aligned in a lot of things. I think you and I think very similarly. Obviously, there's places, things where we don't agree, but in this case, I have to agree with you. There's a lot to like about what we're looking at tonight, and I think it'll be great for the city. I also agree that if I lived right across the street, I'd probably want something a little bit better on Old Fort Road. So I don't think I can make an official recommendation to change that fencing because it falls within code and it checks all the boxes from a administrative perspective. But I would want on record that I think a 4-foot berm with some other type of fencing besides chain link on the top of that berm would probably look and feel a lot better. I don't know if the developer would still have security concerns as you brought up with something like that, but I think that would go a long way to help the look and feel of the entire development. So that's just something that I just wanted on record so that the city council can consider that when they're debating this same thing in your next meeting. A 4-foot berm with almost any other kind of fence besides chain link on the top of that, I think would be okay.
Can I say a few things about the berm real fast?
Sure, go ahead.
I think that, and this may come out wrong, but I think that South Weaver has this infatuation with berms because we see a giant berm on the east side next to the pits.
Which doesn't work.
It doesn't. And let me tell you why. It's because the slope of that berm makes the grass untenable to grow. And it dries out because it can't get the moisture that it needs.
Well, and the sprinklers get clogged by the dust line, so
Yeah.
that's another issue.
So what I've seen here is a very voluptuous landscape plan along the 1-foot berm that is going to grow and be a berm.
Is there a berm?
It is going to be, yeah, there's a 1-foot berm there.
I'm not-
I have an Apple phone, so I can see it.
We were discussing an elevation view that I would actually show what that interface looking into the development would be, probably alleviate a lot of concerns.
Yeah,
To see that visually, because, none of us are experts in all of these areas.
No, they've got
Not just a
fountain grass,
drawing.
they've got berry
Give us a
bushes,
drawing
they've
that
got
at
trees
the
of
city
different
council
heights.
level. I know we didn't get our
Rocks.
3D model. Sometimes we've asked for 3D models. We've yet to ever have one
I
presented.
think this is a preliminary plan, remember, and it's
Yeah.
not
Sure.
final. Well, final plat, it's
Okay.
different.
Yes,
It's not the same thing.
Okay.
They're two different things. So if I can just clarify one thing, so,
That is fair.
sorry, my comment about the chain link fence, I forgot what I thought earlier. I'm willing to support, exchanging something for a better fence or along that south side. So if we give them this, I will support that. So I think that's a good idea. So, but as far as the chain link fence on the north side, I'm totally fine with that. I think we can concede on the wall if they're willing to give us something in return. So, thank you.
Was there something else? Okay. All right, Taylor, do you think you got that? Commissioner Walton, sorry.
I've been writing
your last meeting. We'll give you the honor of it.
Oh,
I
man.
hope you've been taking good notes.
I'm going out with a bang because this is going to be quite the motion. All right, so I would motion that we recommend approval of the preliminary and final plan for RV general development with an additional recommendation on a conditional use be considered for reducing nighttime light pollution coming off the development. We also recommend the exemption from a 15% to a 10% requirement for landscaping with the additional recommendation that fencing along the south side of the development be upgraded to a wrought iron or more aesthetically pleasing material to allow for that exception from the landscaping requirement. The additional exemption would be to the northern boundary of the development area, that that particular acreage identified in the letter from the city planner from the overall development proposal. Furthermore, I would make a motion that we reevaluate the trail being on the north side of the development when it goes forward to the city council. And also that the lighting plan address the southwest corner of the development and looking at reducing the light pollution or light spillage coming off of that section of the acreage. Also that a detailed plan be provided to the city council with a little bit more description with regards to the historic monument on the west side of the property. How did I do?
I think you got everything. Any
Good job.
There's an adjustment, and it's just maybe more a point of clarification on the item that you said about having the trail move to the northern boundary. Is that what you were intending to say?
Yeah, so I would just like to reevaluate the potential of having that trail on the northern side of the property versus on having the sidewalk be included as our active transportation.
You just want to reevaluate it, not that you're proposing it to happen.
Yeah, so when it goes to the city council, I think it would be nice to have that as consideration for them.
Okay.
Okay. Any seconds?
Just one thing, that last portion, I don't support that, but that's not enough for me to say no. So I just want that on the record. I don't think it should be included, but it's like Congress. You add everything you can and try to get the votes, so. Sorry, we're not Congress. We function much better than they do.
I resent that comment, Gary.
It's the trail on the north side. His
The
state
trail on the north
Yeah.
side,
Just to
yeah.
reevaluate it.
I don't agree with that either.
Yeah.
Okay. Any seconds on the motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Commissioner Walton.
Aye.
He made the
Commissioner-
motion.
Hmm?
Don't we all have to do it first?
That's okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Boatright.
Aye.
Commissioner Losey.
Aye.
Commissioner McFadden.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. All right, good job, Commissioner Walton.
Thank you.
Commissioner McFadden. All right, item number 4, Planning Commission comments.
Real quick,
Yes, go ahead.
There was one item that was left on the table that we feel, there's nothing mentioned about the associated agreements, the maintenance agreement with the property in the motion.
So Trevor, I left that off my motion because it was not part of our action as defined in the packet. So do we need to take action on that agreement?
In the packet, the item is preliminary final conditional use and agreements for RV General.
So I'm referencing your letter. But if
Then they
it's
get updated.
yeah, if it's the
It wasn't
clear.
It was included in the, it was mentioned as an included item for consideration in the write-up.
Oh, so you're looking for us to recommend approval for those maintenance agreements?
Yeah, so if you want to look at the packet in my write-up page, second. I want to say it's page probably 3 or 4.
I'm trying to get that.
So Commissioner Davis, we
Making
didn't have a
an
lot of
adjustment.
conversation about the agreements themselves.
Up one more.
What was that, Commissioner Walton?
I was just going to make mention that we didn't have a lot of conversation about the agreements themselves, about the verbiage in them. I don't know if there's other opinions from the Planning Commission on those agreements, but I would be ready to make a motion an amended motion that we include a recommendation for approval of those agreements as written for the City Council.
Go ahead and make it.
Yep.
I'll support that.
Yeah, I agree.
All
I
right,
didn't
so
have
I'll
any
make,
issues with them.
all right. So I'll go ahead and make a motion, an amended motion, that we recommend approval of the associated maintenance agreements included in the packet as written.
I second that.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And I'm an aye as well.
I did, yeah.
Trevor, was there anything else that we missed? Are we good? Okay. All right, now we're on to Planning Commission comments. I'll start with Commissioner McFadden.
None.
None? Commissioner Wilson?
Just what I brought up about the fact that I really would like to, and I know we've been talking a lot about directives from City Council to Planning Commission to best utilize our time. I really do want to get that development proposal process back on the radar of whether it be COTI, whether it be Planning Commission, because I do think that separation is needed and just a reworking of that section of our code, just because there shouldn't be this much confusion when it comes to like, wait, preliminary, final, necessary steps. It should be easy, so. And it should give us the opportunity to have a developer come back to the table and not feel like because I know a lot of time and money is spent before they even get to the Planning Commission, and time spent with staff and reviewing. But for us, this is all new information, new discussion, new conversation. So I don't know. I think that our development process needs an overhaul.
Okay, so noted. Anything else?
No, that's everything.
Commissioner Boatright.
So before y'all leave, you notice here, we as a body just recommend. We're not the final. So if you don't like what you heard here tonight, take it up with your elected officials. That's why they get paid. Sorry.
Commissioner
Right.
Humberson and Mayor Westbrook are here to take your comments.
But
Joel Dill snuck out.
Joe
On
Dill's
an
unfortunately
upcoming
left
city
the
council.
building,
yeah,
but there is also still the public comment website. And again, we do really appreciate you guys coming and
Yeah.
getting in,
Yeah, thank you.
especially those that will be living in this area and be most impacted. It does carry its weight with us.
so I do applaud you. I second that for being here. I know there's a lot of comments and criticisms and questions on Facebook. Facebook is not the venue to air your griefs with things about the city. These types of meetings are. So look for the agenda when it comes to city council. If you still have concerns, you still feel you need to be heard, please attend and please voice your opinion to our elected officials. So, thank you.
Well said. Commissioner Walton, your last chance.
Yeah, goodness. All right. So I also would like to echo the sentiment from Commissioner Boatright. And first of all, just recommend the comments that we did receive tonight. They're well thought out. I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that when we receive public comments, you try to think of and consider the developer's proposal from the merits of the proposal itself. And I thought the comments tonight were great. I also want to thank the developers for taking the time to come and talk us through this. I think it's a great development package that we received. I really appreciated some of the finer points in their proposal, especially a bookmarked PDF that allowed us to scroll between the pages quickly. That was greatly appreciated. And I just like to echo the fact that I'm excited for what the potential of this development might bring to the city. Specifically, I had a couple of questions, and again, this being my last planning commission, they're meeting that they're just recommendations at this point for you all to carry on. At one point during my time on the planning commission, we were receiving engineering reports or kind of like a summary of facts from the engineer. There's a lot of engineering and civil drawings that may not make a whole lot of sense to the members of the planning commission as they review them. And I don't know if it's within our ability to provide some kind of engineering review letter as part of the packet, but that was something that we did in the past that I found helpful and would recommend it to the planning commission moving forward that might be something helpful for you as well. On the agendas, I was just curious to know why we're no longer disclosing a conflict of interest. We used to have that as one of the items going into our agendas, allowing the planning commission to identify any conflicts, maybe something that you might want to do in the future. And then probably my biggest thing that I wanted to bring up is when you do an architectural plan review, it seems like it's wasted time and effort without a standard, a city standard for architectural review. And so, you know, I'd look to maybe ask the city council for a priority to be placed on the design standard for the city, because without it, it's too subjective for the planning commission to weigh in on anything on the architectural plan. And I would probably echo the sentiment from Commissioner Losi on the development process, especially with regards to preliminary and final plat review by the planning commission. It does not make sense. It's confusing and definitely would probably need to be, in my recommendation, due for an overhaul. It was always on the agenda for the code committee to take on, but it just always felt like other priorities are getting in front of it. But it is one of those items that I think consistently trip up the planning commission as they provide their review of a preliminary and final plat. Last thing, it's been a pleasure serving with all of you. It's been a pleasure serving the city. While it might seem flippant to say that I've loved every moment, because certainly moments become difficult and hard.
No, you didn't.
I have loved every moment, even the moments that you know, make me frustrated. And but it has been a true pleasure to serve the city. I hope it's a better place because of my time on the planning commission, and we'll miss the opportunity to sit with you on the dais. But wish you all the best in moving forward. That's all that I have, Commissioner Davis.
Thank you, Commissioner Walton. Appreciate the comments. I too want to mirror the previous comments, where I really enjoyed seeing so many members of the community come out tonight and participate in this process. And I specifically wanted to thank those who had the courage to get up to the podium. Sometimes that's really anxiety ridden for a lot of people. So, and I also agree that the comments that were prepared were so well prepared, and that was really great to hear that. So thank you for taking the time to voice your concern and your opinions on things. It was really, really nice to hear those. And it was great that we were able to have such a great discussion today. And I have, 20 things that I had on my paper, and all of them were, in my opinion, addressed throughout the conversation. Did we get the outcome that we necessarily wanted? On some, yeah, maybe on some others, maybe not so much, but I still really enjoy the process of having that dialogue and hearing each other and making sure that we are trying to check all the boxes and cross all the Ts. So thank you again for coming out and spending your time with us this evening. All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye, Taylor.